woman tries to sell her old wedding ring for food, but the jeweler does something surprising. Emily Johnson took a deep breath before pushing open the glass door of the jewelry store. Her hands trembled as she touched the golden wedding band she had worn on her finger for 15 years. The hunger of her 3 children at home spoke louder than any pride she had left. It was then that she finally removed the ring from her finger for the first time since she got married. The weight of the piece in her palm seemed to carry all the pain of the last few months. Her children hadn't eaten a full meal in 3 days, and she herself hadn't tasted anything in 48 hours. "Good morning," she said with a choked voice as she approached the counter. Robert Wilson looked up from the watch he was repairing. At 62, he had seen many desperate people enter his store, but something in this woman's gaze touched him deeply. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" Emily extended her hand, revealing the golden ring. Her worn-out clothes contrasted with the elegance of the jewelry store located in downtown San Diego, but she no longer cared about appearances. "I need to sell this ring," she murmured, avoiding his gaze. "It's urgent." Robert took the piece carefully and examined it under a special magnifying glass. It was routine for him to verify the authenticity of any jewelry that came his way. But when he focused on the inside of the ring, his expression changed completely. There was a microscopic engraving he recognized immediately. His hands began to tremble. This was no ordinary ring. It was identical to the one his daughter Rebecca had worn when she disappeared 20 years ago. "Ma'am, may I ask where this ring came from?" he asked, trying to stay calm. "It was my mother's," Emily replied, surprised by the question. "She passed away when I was a baby. It's the only thing I have of hers." Robert sank heavily into the chair behind the counter. 20 years of searching for signs of his daughter, and now this woman appeared with a nearly identical ring. The physical resemblance between them was also striking. The same dark, curly hair, the same deep brown eyes. "Listen, I can't buy this ring," he finally said. Emily felt her world collapse. It was her last hope. "Please, sir, I really need the money. I have 3 children at home, and we have nothing to eat. I haven't eaten in 2 days, so they can at least have something." Tears streamed down her face. Robert felt his heart break. The situation reminded him of his own difficult childhood, when he lost his parents early and went hungry on the streets of San Diego. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, he stood up and went to an old drawer behind the counter. From it, he pulled out a faded photo he had kept for decades. It was Rebecca, his missing daughter, wearing a ring identical to the one Emily had brought. "Look at this photo," he said, showing her the image. Emily's eyes widened. The woman in the photo looked like a younger version of herself. The resemblance was eerie. "Who is she?" she asked, her voice shaking. "My daughter Rebecca. She disappeared 20 years ago when she was pregnant. This photo was taken just days before she vanished. Look at the ring she's wearing." Emily studied it closely. It was practically identical to hers, except for minor finishing details. "I have a proposal for you," Robert continued. "I can't buy your ring, but I can give you food and supplies for your family for a month if you'll let me investigate the origin of this piece." "Investigate how?" she asked, suspicious. "I want to find out if there's any connection between your mother and my daughter. Something tells me this resemblance isn't a coincidence." Emily hesitated. She didn't have many options. The children were hungry, and she didn't know what else to do. "What if I don't figure anything out?" "I'll still keep my word. 1 month of groceries for your family, no strings attached." "All right," she said after a long pause, "but I need something to eat today." "Of course. I'll close the shop now and take you to the supermarket." 2 hours later, Robert was helping Emily carry bags of groceries to the small apartment in the Riverdale neighborhood. The home was humble, but clean and tidy. 3 children ran toward their mother as soon as she entered. "Mom, did you bring food?" asked Olivia, the eldest at 12. "Yes, sweetheart. Plenty of food." Ethan, 8, and Tommy, 5, hugged their mother's legs tightly. When they saw Robert, they shyly hid behind her. "Kids, this is Mr. Robert. He's the one who helped us today." The 3 little ones approached timidly. Tommy, the youngest, tugged at the elderly man's jacket sleeve. "Thank you, Mr. Robert," he said in his tiny voice. Something broke inside Robert's chest at that moment. Tommy was the same age his grandson would have been if Rebecca hadn't disappeared while pregnant. The three hugged him with a gratitude he hadn't felt in a long time. "Can I ask you something, Emily?" he said as she put away the groceries. "Do you know anything about your mother? Where she lived, what she did for work?" "Very little. I know her name was Sarah and that she worked at a bakery here in San Diego, but she passed away during childbirth when I was born. I was raised by my grandmother." "Sarah," Robert murmured. The name sounded vaguely familiar. "Why do you ask?" "Just trying to figure out where this ring might have come from. I promise I'll find out." Over the following days, Robert closed the jewelry shop early to search through old records and city archives. He discovered that there had indeed been a Sarah Miller who worked at a bakery called Sweet Memories in the 1980s. More interestingly, he found employment records showing that Rebecca, his daughter, had also worked at the same bakery during that time. The two had been co-workers. "It can't be," he muttered to himself at home, examining the documents. The next day, he sought out Mrs. Dorothy, the bakery's former owner, now 81, and living in a retirement home. "Of course I remember Sarah and Rebecca," she said, her eyes bright. "They were inseparable. Worked with me for nearly 2 years. Do you remember any other details?" "Sarah was a sweet girl, got pregnant very young. Rebecca took care of her like an older sister. When Sarah started having complications in her pregnancy, Rebecca promised to be the baby's godmother." Robert's heart raced. "And what happened after?" "Sarah died in childbirth, poor thing. Rebecca was devastated. She tried to take the baby, but Sarah's family wouldn't allow it, said she was too young and couldn't manage. Rebecca fought hard, but in the end, she lost the legal battle." "And then?" "Rebecca left San Diego soon after. I never heard from her again." Robert left the retirement home with a heavy heart and a growing certainty. Emily was the baby Rebecca had tried to protect years ago. His daughter had disappeared because of the pain of losing the child she considered her goddaughter. When he arrived at Emily's apartment that afternoon, she was helping Olivia with homework. The children looked livelier and well-fed. "I found out some things about your mother," he said, sitting in the simple living room. Emily stopped what she was doing and came closer. "Your mother Sarah and my daughter Rebecca worked together at a bakery. Rebecca took care of your mother during her pregnancy and promised to be her godmother." "Godmother?" Emily repeated, surprised. "Yes. When your mother died in childbirth, Rebecca tried to keep you, but the family wouldn't allow it. She disappeared from San Diego shortly after, devastated by losing you." Emily Johnson sat down slowly, processing the information. "So, you mean your daughter wanted to take care of me?" "Exactly. And now I understand why you have that ring. Rebecca must have left it for you as a keepsake." Tears streamed down Emily's face. For the first time in her life, she learned someone had loved her mother and tried to protect her. "Where is she now?" she asked. "I don't know. I've been searching for 20 years. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the following weeks, Robert Wilson intensified his search for Rebecca. He hired a private investigator, placed ads in newspapers, and even created social media profiles looking for her. His business began to suffer, worrying his wife, Margaret. "Robert, you're spending all our savings on this," Margaret complained one evening, "and you're barely home. It's important, Margaret. This might be our only chance to find Rebecca. And what if it isn't? What if you're fooling yourself? This woman could be taking advantage of you." "That's not it. I know there's a real connection." Margaret sighed, frustrated. 40 years of marriage, and she'd never seen her husband so obsessed. "You need to stop before you lose complete control." But Robert couldn't stop. Seeing Emily and the children reminded him of the family he'd lost when Rebecca disappeared. He'd become a grandfather in spirit to those little ones. Ethan, the middle child, had formed a special bond with him. Whenever Robert visited, the boy would run to show him the drawings he'd made at school. "Look, Mr. Wilson, I drew our family," Ethan said one day, holding up a paper with colorful figures. In the drawing were him, Olivia, Tommy, Emily and Robert, all smiling, holding hands. "Our family?" Robert asked, moved. "Yeah, you're like a grandpa to us," the boy replied innocently. Robert swallowed hard. He hadn't expected the children to see him that way. The boy's words touched a wound he didn't even know still bled. Meanwhile, Margaret made a drastic decision. One morning, she showed up unannounced at Emily's apartment. "We need to talk," she said sharply when Emily opened the door. "Of course, come in. I'm Margaret, Robert's wife. I'm here because you need to stop accepting his help." Emily was confused. "I don't understand. He offered and I accepted. My children were starving. My husband is spending our entire retirement savings on you. He's neglecting work and his own family. This has to stop." "I never asked for anything beyond what he offered," Emily defended herself. "It doesn't matter. From now on, I want you to refuse any help." The children playing in the living room grew frightened by the argument. Tommy started crying. "Please don't shout," Emily pleaded, scooping up her son. "The children are scared." "Then settle this once and for all. Stop accepting charity and figure out your own life." Margaret slammed the door on her way out, leaving Emily shaken. The kids huddled around their mother, worried. "Mom, do we have to give everything back?" Olivia asked. "I don't know, sweetheart, I don't know." When Robert arrived that afternoon, he found the family silent. Emily told him about Margaret's visit and her demand to end the support. "She's wrong," Robert said. "I won't stop helping you." "But she's your wife. I don't want to cause trouble in your marriage." "The problem isn't you. Margaret never understood my pain over losing Rebecca. Maybe she's right. Maybe we should try to manage on our own." "No. You're the family I never got to have. I won't abandon you now." Tommy approached and tugged at Robert's shirt. "Grandpa Robert, did the angry lady say you can't come here anymore?" Robert's heart broke when he heard the word grandpa. It was the first time a child had ever called him that. "No, my boy, I'll keep coming here always." But things got even more complicated when Ethan fell seriously ill the following week. The boy woke up with a high fever and trouble breathing. Emily rushed him to the public hospital, but the waiting line was enormous. Desperate, she called Robert. He arrived at the hospital in 15 minutes and immediately arranged for Ethan to be seen by a private doctor he knew. "It's pneumonia," the doctor diagnosed. "He needs immediate hospitalization." "I can't afford it," Emily said, frantic. "I'll pay," Robert said without hesitation. "Do whatever it takes to save this boy." For 3 days, Robert stayed at the hospital day and night, taking turns with Emily to care for Ethan. Olivia and Tommy stayed with a friendly neighbor. On the second night, Ethan woke up frightened and began to cry. "I want my mum," he sobbed. Emily was asleep in a chair beside the bed. Robert moved closer to the boy. "Your mom is right here, son. She's just resting a little." "Grandpa Robert, will I get better?" "You will. The doctor said you'll leave here stronger than ever. Promise you won't leave." "I promise. I'll stay right here until you're better." Ethan took Robert's hand and fell asleep holding it. In that moment, the old man knew those children had become his grandchildren in his heart. On the third day, Margaret showed up at the hospital. She looked visibly remorseful. "I came to bring some things," she said, handing Robert a bag of clean clothes. "Thank you," he replied coldly. "How's the boy?" "Better. He should be discharged tomorrow." Margaret looked at Ethan sleeping in the bed, then at Emily, who was organizing some medicine. "Robert, I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "About Rebecca." Robert stopped what he was doing and turned to her. "What about Rebecca?" "I always knew where she was." The world stopped for Robert. He felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. "What did you say?" "Rebecca lives in Sacramento. She's married and has 2 children. She changed her name to Rebecca Christine." "And you never told me?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I was afraid. I thought if you found her, you'd leave me." Robert sank heavily into a chair. 20 years searching for his daughter, and his wife had known where she was the whole time. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because I saw how you care for these children. I saw the love in your eyes. I realized you wouldn't leave me because of Rebecca. You have enough love for all of us." Emily, who had overheard part of the conversation, stepped closer. "Rebecca is alive?" she asked. "She is," Margaret confirmed, "and she has her own family." "Why did she never come back to look for her father?" Margaret hesitated before answering. "Because of me. When she disappeared from San Diego, I managed to find out where she was. I went there and told her her father had moved on, and it was better if she didn't return." "Margaret," Robert exclaimed, horrified. "I was young and afraid of losing you. It was selfish of me." The silence that followed was broken only by the beeping of medical machines. Robert tried to process 20 years of lies. "Do you have her address?" he finally asked. "I do." "And more than that," Margaret said, pulling an envelope from her purse. "I have letters. Letters she wrote you over the years that I intercepted." Robert took the envelope with trembling hands. "There were at least 20 letters from Rebecca. She tried to reach me?" "Every year on your birthday and Christmas. In the last letters she talks about her children and says she never stopped loving you." Emily watched the scene with a heavy heart. He witnessed Robert's suffering, while feeling a strange connection to Rebecca, the godmother he'd never met. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers tremendously. Now, continuing. When Ethan was discharged the next day, Robert had made up his mind. He would go to Sacramento to find Rebecca and try to reconcile with his daughter. But first, he wanted to ensure Emily and the children were settled. "I want to offer you a job at the jewelry store," he told Emily. "You can learn the trade and have a steady income." "Really?" she asked, touched. "Very much so. You have a way with people, and the kids need stability. But I don't know anything about jewelry. I'll teach you. And Margaret can help too. She knows the business well." Margaret, who was present, nodded. "It'd be my pleasure to teach you, Emily, the least I can do after everything I've caused." In the following days, Emily began working at the jewelry store. She learned about different metals, gemstones, and repair techniques, showing a natural talent for delicate work and attention to detail. The kids went straight from school to the shop, doing homework at a table in the back. Robert had set up a special corner for them with books, games, and school supplies. Ethan, still recovering from pneumonia, loved sitting beside Robert as he worked on watches. "How do you make these watches work, Grandpa?" he asked, fascinated by the tiny gears. "With patience and care, my boy. Everything in life needs patience and care." Tommy drew obsessively, always including Robert in his creations. Olivia, the eldest, helped her mother by organizing inventory and assisting customers. One afternoon, as Emily was helping a customer, a letter arrived for Robert. The sender was Rebecca Christine from Sacramento. "Margaret told me you found out where I am," Rebecca wrote. "I'd love to talk. Could we meet?" Robert's heart raced. 20 years waiting for this moment. "Emily, I need to go to Sacramento tomorrow," he said. "I'm meeting Rebecca." "That's wonderful," she exclaimed. "I'm sure it'll all work out. I want you to come with me." "Me? Why?" "Because you're part of this story. Rebecca tried to be your godmother. I think she'd like to meet you." The next day, Robert and Emily took a bus to Sacramento. The kids stayed with Margaret, who offered to look after them. During the trip, Robert shared more about Rebecca. She was always a special girl, determined, brave. When her mother Sarah got sick, Rebecca took care of her even though she was so young. "What was my mother like?" Emily asked. According to Dorothy, Sarah was sweet and hardworking. "She got pregnant young but faced it with courage. Rebecca always said her mother was the strongest person she knew." "Then why did she disappear after I was born?" "I think the pain was too much. She'd promised to take care of you and couldn't. For someone like Rebecca, that must have been devastating." When they arrived at the address in Sacramento, they found a simple but well-kept house. Rebecca waited at the gate. Robert barely recognized her. The 20-year-old girl had become a woman of 40, with streaks of gray and laugh lines around her eyes. But her smile was the same. "Dad," she said, rushing to hug him. The embrace lasted minutes. 20 years of longing melted away. "My girl, how you've grown," Robert murmured. "I've missed you every day," Rebecca replied, crying. When they pulled apart, Rebecca looked at Emily and went speechless. Are you Sarah's baby?" she asked, incredulous. "I am," confirmed Emily Johnson. "Emily Johnson!" Rebecca studied her for a long moment before pulling her into a tight hug. "My God, you look just like your mother," she exclaimed. "I held you in my arms when you were just a few days old. My dad told me you tried to take care of me. I tried, but I couldn't. Forgive me for not being able to protect you." "You don't have to forgive yourself for anything," Emily said. "You did what you could." Rebecca led them inside the house, where they met her husband, Michael, and their two children, 15-year-old Emma and 12-year-old Ryan. "Dad, these are your grandchildren," Rebecca said, introducing the kids. Robert Wilson was moved to tears seeing the grandchildren he'd never met. Emma looked just like Rebecca at that age, and Ryan had his grandfather's eyes. Over lunch, the two families talked for hours. Rebecca shared about her life in Sacramento, how she met Michael, and how they built their family. "I never stopped thinking about you, Dad," she said. "And I never stopped blaming myself for leaving Emily behind. The past is past, my daughter. What matters is that we're all together now." Michael, who had stayed quiet until then, finally spoke. "Rebecca has always talked about you and the promise she couldn't keep. I think finding Emily will heal an old wound for her." "What do you mean?" Robert asked. "She never forgave herself for not being able to stay with Emily. She always said she failed her best friend. It haunted her for years." Rebecca nodded in confirmation. "When I found out Sarah had passed and I couldn't take you in, I felt like I'd betrayed my best friend. I promised to care for you and I couldn't." "But you had no choice," Emily argued. "My mother's family wouldn't allow it. Even so, I always felt guilty. That's why I ended up leaving San Diego. I couldn't live in the city where I'd failed." Robert took his daughter's hand. "Rebecca, you didn't fail. You were so young, and you did your best. And look how everything turned out. Emily grew up, has 3 beautiful children, and now we're all together." "What are Emily's kids like?" Emma asked curiously. "They're 3 little angels," Robert said proudly. "Olivia is 12, Ethan is 8, and Tommy is 5. Wonderful children." "I'd love to meet them," Rebecca said. "And they really want to meet you too," Emily replied, "especially after they found out you tried to be my godmother." As evening fell and it was time to return to San Diego, Rebecca made a request. "Dad, can I come with you? I want to meet the kids and see the house you live in now." "Of course," Robert exclaimed. "It'll be wonderful to have you home." Michael decided to join them with the children. They wanted to get to know their grandfather and the San Diego family better. The trip back was filled with lively conversation. Rebecca and Emily discovered they had much in common, despite growing up in different worlds. "You know what's funny?" Rebecca said. "I always felt like something was missing in my life. Now I understand it was you." "I always felt like I should have had a godmother," Emily replied. "My grandmother used to say there was someone who loved my mother and wanted to take care of me." "Your grandmother knew about me?" "She did. She always said that one day that person would come into my life." When they arrived in San Diego, Margaret was waiting at the bus station with Emily's 3 children. The reunion was emotional. "Kids, this is Rebecca, my daughter," Robert said. "Mummy's godmother?" Ethan asked. "That's right," Rebecca confirmed, kneeling to his level. Tommy ran to her and hugged her. "Are you going to be our grandma too?" he asked innocently. Rebecca looked at Emily, silently asking permission. "If you'll have me, I'd love to be Grandma Rebecca," she answered, her voice thick with emotion. Olivia, always more reserved, approached slowly. "My mom said you tried to take care of her when she was a baby. I did try, and now I want to take care of you too, if you'll let me." "You can," said Olivia, smiling for the first time. In the following days, Robert and Margaret's house became a family gathering hub. Rebecca and her family stayed there, and Emily with the children spent every afternoon together. Emma and Ryan got along wonderfully with Olivia, Ethan, and Tommy. Despite the age difference, the 5 cousins played together and formed an instant bond. "It's amazing how much they look alike," commented Michael, watching the kids play in the backyard. "It's family recognizing each other," said Robert, moved. Margaret, who had spent the last few days in silence, finally approached Rebecca. "I need to ask for your forgiveness," she said. "I did terrible things out of jealousy and fear." "You're already forgiven," replied Rebecca. "What matters is that we're all together now." "No, I'm not. I stole 20 years of you being with your father. I intercepted your letters, lied to him. I don't deserve forgiveness." "Margaret, we all make mistakes," said Rebecca, taking her hands. "What matters is having the courage to admit it and try to make things right. You've done that." "How can you be so generous?" "Because I've learned that holding on to grudges only brings pain, and I've suffered enough being away from my family." That evening, the whole family gathered for a special dinner prepared by Margaret and Emily. The large table barely fit everyone, but no one minded the tight squeeze. "I'd like to make a toast," said Robert, raising his glass, "to the family that was lost and found again, to Emily, who brought Rebecca back to us, and to the children who taught us that family is so much more than blood." "To family," everyone chorused. After dinner, Rebecca took out a small velvet box she had brought from Sacramento. "Emily, this is for you," she said, handing her the box. Emily opened it and found a gold ring almost identical to her own. "It belonged to your mother, Sarah," Rebecca explained. "She gave it to me just before you were born, asking me to give it to you when you grew up." "How did you manage to keep it?" "I hid it all these years, hoping one day I'd find you. Now I can finally fulfill the promise I made to your mother." Emily placed her mother's ring on her right hand, keeping hers on the left. "Now I have both," she said, moved. "Mine and my mother's." "And you have a whole family too," added Robert. In the weeks that followed, Rebecca and her family decided to move to San Diego. Michael managed to transfer his job, and the kids quickly adjusted to their new schools. They bought a house near the jewelry store, where everyone worked together. Rebecca took over the administrative side of the business. Emily continued learning about jewelry, and Margaret handled customer service. The 5 children grew up like siblings. Olivia became a second mother to Tommy, while Ethan found in Ryan an older brother to look up to. Emma, though the oldest, loved playing with the younger ones. "You know what amazes me the most?" Michael remarked one afternoon, watching the kids play in the jewelry store's backyard. "What?" asked Robert. "How a ring almost sold out of despair ended up uniting 2 families." "It wasn't the ring," Robert replied, smiling. "It was love. Love never dies. It just waits for the right moment to show itself." Emily, overhearing the conversation, touched the 2 rings she now wore. "My grandmother always said these rings were special," she said. "Now I understand why. They held our family's story." Rebecca walked over and put her arm around Emily's shoulders. "You know what I think?" she said. "I believe your mother Sarah and my father planned all this from above." "What do you mean?" "Sarah knew you'd need a family, and my father knew I needed to keep my promise to take care of you. So they found a way to bring us together. Through a ring that was almost sold for food," added Emily Johnson, smiling. "Exactly. What seemed like desperation was actually destiny." The jewelry store thrived with the family working together. The story of how they found each other spread through the neighborhood, and many people came not just to buy jewelry, but to hear about the power of family bonds. Robert Wilson created a frame on the shop wall with pictures of the whole family. In the center was the photo of Sarah that Rebecca had kept all those years. "She's here with us," he would say whenever someone asked about the picture. A year after their reunion, the family decided to hold a special ceremony. Rebecca would officially become Emily's godmother, even after all these years. The ceremony was simple, held right in the jewelry store with friends and neighbors present. Robert officiated, since the original promise had been made in his presence. "Rebecca Wilson, do you accept being Emily Johnson's godmother as you promised her mother Sarah 25 years ago?" "I do," Rebecca answered, emotional. "And you, Emily, do you accept Rebecca as your godmother?" "I do, with all my love." The two embraced as the children cheered. Tommy, now 6 years old, shouted, "Now we're a real family." The boys' words captured everyone's feelings. It didn't matter how they had found each other or how long they'd been apart. What mattered was that they were together now. Margaret documented everything with photos, creating a special album that was displayed in the store. People loved flipping through it and seeing the story of this extraordinary family. "You're proof that family is about love, not just blood," remarked Dorothy, the former owner of the bakery, who had been invited to the ceremony. "Exactly," Robert agreed. "Love creates bonds stronger than any kinship." During the celebration afterward, Ethan approached Robert. "Grandpa, can I ask you something?" "Of course, my boy." "If Mom hadn't tried to sell the ring, would we never have met?" Robert thought for a moment. "Maybe not in that way, but I believe love always finds a path. One way or another, we would have found each other." "How can you be so sure?" "Because that's what family is. You might get lost, you might be separated, but you never forget. The heart always knows the way home." Ethan smiled and ran back to play with his cousins. Robert looked at his whole family gathered together and felt a peace he hadn't known in decades. The ring Emily had almost sold for food had become a symbol of their family's unity. She decided never to take it off her finger, no matter what. "This ring will stay with me forever," she told Rebecca. "It brought you back into our lives." "And it brought you into mine," her godmother replied. "I finally kept my promise to your mother." "What promise?" "I promised I'd take care of you, and now I can do that for the rest of my life." The two women smiled, knowing that from then on they would never be alone again. They had found not just each other, but an entire family who loved them. End of story. So, what did you think of this touching story? Tell us in the comments if you believe destiny truly exists and can bring people together. Have you ever experienced something similar in your family? Share your story below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartfelt stories like this one. Thank you for being here with us.